Hello, and welcome to Down in the Bunker. My name is James Merritt, and today I'm joined by the formidable Nick Foster. Nick, thank you for joining me.
James, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, formidable. That's quite a lot to live up to, but we shall see how we go.
So why don't we start? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool, lovely. Well, so I'm Nick, currently working as Technical and Consultancy Director at CYFOR Legal, e-discovery. Been with CYFOR now for coming up on 5 years. It's been a kind of interesting journey throughout the 5 years that I've been there, and we've grown, exponentially in that period of time, both in terms of kind of, from a commercial angle, and also as a wider business and in terms of headcount. So yeah, it's a really exciting journey that the business is going on at the moment. So it's great to be sort of involved and part of that. So that's me in a nutshell, really. I guess we'll go into sort of potted career history, and because it's an interesting journey, I suppose, that got me into e-discovery. But yeah, that's me for now.
So how long have you been working in e-discovery, and what led you to the industry? Because it's not really something that you go to university or school to, I'm going to be an e-discovery specialist.
Yeah, no one really wakes up one day and decides, you know what, I'm going to be an e-discoverer. It's something we probably all just fell into, right? I think, the way I got into the industry 11 years ago now, I was a police officer. So I did about 10 years in the police, Bedfordshire Police, and at the back end of my career, the last kind of 4 or 5 years, I worked my way into the digital forensic arena, initially from like an investigations angle, like a cyber investigations angle, and then into some of the kind of more grisly child online abuse sort of work. And then that moved into the digital forensics arena, where I then started to kind of train as a practitioner, ended up working in a digital forensic unit. And then by the time I left Bedfordshire Police, I was sort of working as the technical manager of the unit, as we kind of were starting to work towards ISO 17025 accreditations, which if you know anything about digital forensics, it's kind of, it's there as the forensic standard, but it's been the bane of digital forensic practitioners' lives really for the past kind of 10 to 15 years, as they've sort of worked out, my God, how are we going to bash this square peg into a round hole? But yeah, interesting times. I had a really good opportunity to leave the police, and it sort of coincided with, I guess, a period in my life when I was looking to kind of step out of public sector work anyway. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to join BT as part of their global digital forensic and e-discovery capability. We're based out of Bletchley, in super interesting area of work where we got involved with all sorts of things, multiple levels across the business, and got to go to some cool places and do some interesting internal investigations and support some of the litigation and arbitration work, regulatory compliance work that BT were involved with. Yeah, and then from there, 2020, I joined Anexsys, which was my first sort of leap into the vendor space. Really good place to sort of go and learn the vendor-scape really, and kind of quickly come from an in-house role to experience the volume and the pace of a vendor, and to see how that worked, and really enjoyed my time there. Met and dealt with some fantastic people in what was a relatively short window, before then moving over to CYFOR. It's probably been, I don't know, coming up on 10 years in e-discovery now, and then sort of 5 or 6 years digital forensics work before that. It's fairly long in the tooth, hence I've got no hair.
Just joining the club.
Yeah, it comes for us all.
It does. So does e-discovery excite you in the same way maybe that the policing may have done at the beginning of your career? Does it, or is it just a completely different sort of tact?
I love every part of my job, James. I'm really lucky. I genuinely mean that. Like, I wake up in the morning, look forward to coming to work. I really enjoy every phase of it. My role is, I suppose, an interesting one because it transcends the technical and consultancy element of the work that we deliver, and also the commercial side of it and a lot of the business development side of it. So I'm lucky I get to kind of experience it from both angles. So yeah, I really enjoy it. One of the main things I enjoy is just that working with kind of, litigation lawyers, or, working in arbitration, regulatory compliance, investigations, whatever it is we're doing, you quickly become an expert about something you knew absolutely nothing about before. Every contract dispute is different, and every kind of commercial litigation or shipping matter is extremely different, and you see some wild disputes and kind of get involved in some really interesting stuff. So it's different to the police in that I guess the work, typically isn't quite as sexy, but it is, yeah, it's really enjoyable. And for me, I've always loved working with lawyers and trying to solve problems for them to make their lives easier. My first sort of experience with that was working with the Crown Prosecution Service, when I was in the police, and sort of working alongside those kind of public sector criminal justice lawyers and seeing the constraints that they were up against and trying to kind of make their lives easier and do a good job on their behalf and support them in kind of court work and things like that. I always really enjoyed that. I think that's the crux of it, really. If you can use your knowledge and skills and some of the technology that we've got available to help make someone else's life easier in what they're doing, that's what I really enjoy and kind of what I love about the business.
So what is it that you've taken away from the different firms that you've worked for, and how are you applying that into any of that knowledge into your current role?
Yeah, good question. So I think, well, certainly from being like, in an in-house function with BT, that experience, really interesting experience in that, like any kind of large FTSE 100 or kind of, massive corporation, there's lots and lots of layers of decision making and multiple teams who work collaboratively to kind of move projects through various phases of life cycle, various life cycles of a project. And then, working for kind of more of a sort of boutique vendor, Anexsys, and that was prior to Concilio's acquisition. So it felt like working for a startup, and there was very much a kind of can-do, a sort of can-do philosophy for any problems that got brought to your door. But that was all really down to the people that were involved. So I think that's my kind of main takeaway really from wherever I've been. Like, is that it's so important to get the right people to go on that journey with you, and that's something that very much sort of exists in our ethos at CYFOR, really, is to try and find the right people to sort of come on that journey as we grow. And we're really lucky, we've got some fantastic people. We've worked with some fantastic people over the years who might have, have moved on since. But yeah, it's the people that kind of make the processes. I see, e-discovery, I think some people see it as a bit of a dark art. I like to see it as, a real creative process, and everybody brings their own sort of brushstrokes to the process. I know there's there are a lot of organizations and kind of, being in-house at somewhere like BT previously, you were constrained to an element by playbooks and operating procedures and things like that. But I'm a firm believer that within processes, if you allow people a little bit of kind of creativity and sort of artistic license within that, they can use their brain to problem solve in a much better way, in a much more effective way. And sometimes, the outcome that a client might want is something they don't necessarily know about or they're not expecting. And it's up to our consultants and the people that we have working for us to kind of creatively get them from A to B in that process. And sometimes, that might be going a little bit outside the box to develop a new solution or something bespoke that, we can implement really quickly and agilely because we're, set up that way and we've got the people to do it. So I think that's kind of my key takeaway really from wherever I've been, is that you're only ever as good as the people that you're working with. And as a kind of leader in the business, I'm a firm believer that you want other people in the room that are more intelligent than you, more capable than you, and have got greater technical ability than you. And if you've got that, chances are you're doing the right thing in assembling a team around you that is going to be able to deal with anything that you chuck at them.
I completely agree. That's a great answer. Thank you. So what is it that CYFOR are doing that you're really excited about?
Yeah, as I said, just as a business at the moment, going through a real kind of growth curve. I think the way that the kind of UK discovery market is set up, or kind of has moved through sort of a transition in the last kind of 5 to 10 years, where initially lots of kind of bigger giants came in, bought up a lot of the smaller sort of more boutique vendors at the time. And now I think that it's kind of come full circle again now. That I think there is still gaps in the market for, a lot of the kind of more sort of, again, boutique white glove vendors out there to just provide a slightly closer personal service. And there's a lot of legal teams that still crave that, that still want their hand held and to be taken through the process. And, I kind of compare that to my in-house experience at BT, where, you're working really closely with in-house legal teams. And I almost want that function, when we're delivering a project for a customer at CYFOR to feel that same way, where it's, a close personal working relationship between the two teams, so that they do feel like they can just pick up the phone, and they're not going into email ticketing systems. They're getting that response quickly. It's a proactive response. It's not a transactional thing. And like I said before, there's a little bit of artistic license in what we're delivering. Our consultants, are end-to-end operatives, and they're encouraged and I kind of mandate that they need to understand the cases that they're dealing with. They need to make sure that they've read those Section 1 issues, that they fully understand the Section 2 DRD, that they're kind of living and breathing the case along with that case team to deliver it. Because if you don't have the context of actually what a matter's about, trying to consult on that in the terms of the use of technology and unpick some of the problems that we come across, you need to know a little bit about the data and about the context of the data that you're looking at, right? So for me, I think that's really important. And then that does excite me. We found that is resonating with the market at the moment. As such, we are going on a little bit of a growth journey, and commercially things are on an upward trend, which is a nice problem to have, but also creates other issues as well. So, but yeah, it's exciting times.
How do you feel about the use of the Gen AI within eDiscovery now?
James, I mean, who doesn't love it, right? It's great fun to kind of experiment and play with it and really kind of work out how you're going to implement that into modern workflows. So I am a big AI evangelist, and we love using it. Multiple products that we kind of partner with and go to market with. But for us, it's really about kind of, is that the right solution at the right time? It's not something where we're going to be forcing it down legal teams' necks if it's not what they want, or if it's not what we think is going to be the right solution for the right problem. I think there's a bit of an unspoken issue with Gen AI in legal tech at the moment. And it kind of comes from the perspective that if you're a senior partner in a law firm, right, you're KPI'd on revenue that you bring in. And, senior partners in law firms like to make their bonuses, right, at the end of the year. Who doesn't? Okay, so if I'm a senior partner in a law firm and I'm billing 50K for a junior team to do a first pass review, if that 50K drops out of my revenue pipeline because I'm spending, let's say, 10K on Gen AI that's doing the job for me. Okay, whilst I'm doing a great job for my client there, that's a lot of money that drops out of my revenue stream that I've got to backfill somehow. Now, I know that the answer to that will be, we just do more QC and we bill it at a higher level, or we take on more work. But every law firm out there is having those same discussions and is trying to do that same thing. Like a lot of the people I've spoken to, I think that's kind of like, it is a real concern. Every law firm knows that they should be using it, right? And they want to use it and they want to tell their clients they're using it. But I think there's this kind of unspoken concern, an issue that is the elephant in the room that no one's really sure how to deal with. So it's an interesting one. I've spoken to some people and we've worked with clients on lots of different projects where some teams are keen to adopt it and have used it in ECA phases, have used it in review phases, kind of post-extended disclosure, comparison and witness statement work and things like that. And then other teams where, they're just not ready at this stage, and you can kind of demo them and, explain what we're going to be doing and evangelize to the hilt, but, you're just not going to get there. So it's an interesting one. I think there's a lot of fatigue in the legal sector as well, and particularly when you talk to kind of lawyers at all levels in law firms. I think there is a little bit of kind of Gen AI fatigue at the moment in the market. And, as tech vendors, we all like talking about it. And it's the first thing that we talk about when we speak to our clients, particularly in, BD catch-ups or anything like that. We tell them what we're doing. But yeah, I think it's getting harder to find an angle that is something that they've not heard 50 times before.
Do you see it similar then to the type of conversations that you'd have been having with the use of Cal? Because again, that was a way to be more proportionate and reduce the time it takes to do reviews, a cost-saving exercise for the ultimate end client.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I think things go in kind of waves and cycles. So yeah, we were having those conversations like 6-7 years ago, and probably again trying to have those sort of same discussions about whether we need to do layers of QC here and feedback into the model and blah blah blah, and that's what we're that's how we're going to be making our money on the process. But obviously the inception of Practice Directive 57 AD and the disclosure pilot and making everything much more proportionate and kind of almost request issue led, I think the Gen AI piece slots in nicely. in getting legal teams to that position. But I just think certainly in the UK, where I think legal tech isn't as eagerly adopted as it is in the US, I think it still remains a bit of a sell with some legal teams that we speak to, and I still think there's a lot of people that aren't quite ready for it yet.
I'll probably go from what I've seen as well. Though I have found that people are more willing to be using Gen I somewhere within the process than they were necessarily Cal. It seems it's less of a fight, possibly because Cal's come before it, and so that argument's already kind of been had. But also probably good Gen AI is more in their face every day. They're using it on other applications.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. If they're using tools that are helping them internally, with kind of contract review or legal case sort of case law investigation and research, or they're using even things like Copilot to help kind of BAU daily activities, and Copilot agents to rank and prioritize email response and things like that. It feels a bit more normal now, and I think it is everywhere, isn't it? Like, it's not just if you're going to book a holiday, the first thing you do these days is you open Claude or ChatGPT and you start punching in some prompts and putting together a bit of a schedule and then comparing pricing, and I'm having building work done at home at the moment and kind of using some of the deep research within ChatGPT and Claude to kind of position and understand actually what is the market rate for the work I'm having done, and what should I be looking for, what are the pitfalls, and so I think people are using it in everyday life. So for parts of the process, I think it does feel a bit more normal. A lot of the teams we work with, it works really well for that early case assessment piece, and almost before you're sort of thrashing out what the issues in the dispute are going to be, you're kind of stress testing those issues against the document set that you hold using Gen AI, and I think that's a great use case for it. And it gets you from nowhere to somewhere very quickly. It's never going to be the end product, obviously. A lot of QC, a lot of sense checking, but yeah, I think for legal teams that way, I think it's easier to adopt it. I still think, or our experience is there's a lot more kind of pushback in terms of first pass usage at the moment and kind of general document review around it, and it's easier to slot it into other parts of the process. So yeah, agree with that.
And do you think that prompts are going to become a thing of the CMC? So what prompts are you using to get through your data in a way that search terms currently are? Because if prompts are going to be used to cull data down, then are they going to be disclosable? And how are you going to handle that if that comes through?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should come to that. I mean, we've started to kind of do a little bit of internal prompt training, working alongside other kind of vendors, with the products that we're using. And outside of that, some of our team have done, external kind of prompt engineering sessions and things. What I think is interesting, actually, it was only yesterday or the day before that I was having this conversation with a lawyer at a team in London, and the question was asked, well, do you think legal teams should have training in how to sort of engineer and generate prompts? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes. The number of times I still kind of pick up a DRD these days and look at it and shake my head because I'm looking at singular keywords, 50 singular keywords on a DRD and thinking, gosh, we're going to have problems here. So a lot of legal teams, yeah, I mean, a lot of legal teams still haven't grasped, Boolean syntax and just kind of basic functioning search terms, let alone prompts. So yeah, I think we will get to that, absolutely. Particularly if we're using those prompts to then, relativity case assessment, if we're using those prompts to then refine a first possible documents and base our whole review on that, then absolutely they've got to be kind of pre-agreed up front. They've got to be disclosable. And I think the QC workflows around that almost need to be sort of disclosable and agreed up front as well. So both parties know where they stand, because particularly in, P57 AD, it's all about cooperative and working towards an end goal in a proportionate manner, in that cooperative spirit, or it should be anyway, to move the matter on and save the courts time and money. So yeah, I think ultimately that would be a good thing. And I think we probably will get there. How soon we'll get there? Yeah, I think we're away yet. But
so what would you like to see changed in the industry?
For me, I think one of the real key issues in the industry is the sort of commoditization of data, and the way that I think, a lot of the industry go to market. It seems counterintuitive to us at CYFOR that as a vendor, you make more money based on the volume of data you collect, when actually your job is to get the legal team's eyes on the documents they need to see and filter out the rest of the stuff they don't need to see. So I think I'd like to see kind of a bit more of a refined commercial approach across, across the industry. around that. And you know, I understandably, when you're using a SaaS product and those prices are passed on, that gets difficult to then kind of structure your model. But yeah, I think that's kind of a real bugbear that I've got with the industry as a whole, and kind of, unit rates and things like that. Commoditization of data. I think a lot of it's snake oil, and I think it gives us a bad name. And yeah, I think there's better ways that things can be done if we're truly getting kind of proactive and we're actually doing proper e-discovery work. It's not just like a volume and numbers game, right? Like I say, in England and Wales, the new practice directives, things are supposed to be proportionate, and as long as we can defend the position and we can document the choices that we've made along the way to ensure that what we're doing is defensible and it's proportionate, and it's getting us to the right answers, then it doesn't have to always be about, can we collect all this data? Can we process as much data as possible? Look, we're hosting X amount of data and we're going to charge you this for it. So that's I think that's something I would, I think the industry kind of needs to be a bit more finely tuned into. But yeah,
especially with the data volumes being generated now, right? It's
yeah, exactly. Like, ultimately, those data volumes can lead to corner cutting if you're not addressing it properly. And I think if you're going to address it properly, it does need to be in conjunction with people that know what they're talking about and understand the process and can correctly document that process and when they're taking you on that journey, and ensure that the decisions you're making are robust, defensible. And that's what it's about for us, really.
So how do you see the marketplace changing in the next few years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, James. Like I said to you before, I think the UK is rife for more sort of boutique vendors out there. There are obviously big names in the market who kind of scoop up a lot of work, but the more and more I talk to people, in legal circles, I think the more that craving is, particularly when you're using a Gen AI solution, is to know that you're working in the hands of trusted people and that every stage of that process is being fully explained in the context of your case and not just in the context of a set of standard operating procedures that have been written by someone in a large organization somewhere that is detached from your specific matter. So yeah, for me, I think there's lots of opportunities in the wider market. There's plenty of work out there, enough for everyone. And I think what we'll see probably in the next few years, particularly with the use of Gen AI and being able, smaller vendors probably being able to kind of pack a bigger punch because of that and bite off a little bit more work than perhaps they historically might have been able to chew. I think that's an interesting time for the industry, and I think it, ultimately it's a good thing because it will lead to a more competitive marketplace, and some interesting roles and opportunities for lots of kind of more junior members of teams across the wider market. So yeah, I think that's my kind of main takeaway really, is that I think bigger opportunity for kind of smaller fish to come into the market and have a bigger chunk of it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So final question. Outside of work, what do you like to do to let off steam?
Well, I mean, I've got two small kids, Henry and George, 9 and 6 years old. They keep me very busy. Buying and spending a fortune on Lego, as you can see behind me. I'm also a cricket fan. Just over my shoulder here, you see the signed cricket shirt. So I'm a big 25 years I've played cricket. Barely got any cartilage in either of my knees anymore because of it. I'm getting on a bit now. I'm 41 years old, so I'll still roll out this season and try and do another 25 games, much to my wife's absolute delight. 8 hours out of the house on a Saturday and a Sunday is sometimes a tough sell. But yeah, that's a big love of mine. Yeah, sport in general, really. Like, my kids are starting to get into football and swimming and tennis and things like that. So if I'm not ferrying those about to an activity that they're involved in, it'll be trying to find some time to either play cricket or golf. Big golf fan, so whenever I'm up in Manchester, out with clients or seeing people, I've always got a set of golf clubs in the back of the car, looking for an opportunity to get on the course, particularly if we get a day like today when it's lovely and sunny outside. Definitely a fair weather golfer, but well, it is here anyway.
Yeah, actually, it is in the north as well, so I think we're okay.
Yeah.
So are you a batter or a bowler? Or
a bit of both. Middle order batsman, known to give it a little bit of a hoik. Yeah, used to bowl a bit quicker, but these days just loopy village off spin. Yeah, I think not doing too badly in the last few years.
Cricket's a great sport. Something I've loved since I was a boy.
Do you play as well?
Not anymore.
No.
Grew up in a village. I played village cricket as a child, and then played for the men's team. But when I moved to London, e-discovery, I just had to give it. You work so many hours, I couldn't fathom having to give up a weekend. And then as children come along, those bosses now, three ladies in my life, they wouldn't allow that to go on.
Yeah, you've got to kind of make it. You got to be prepared to make it part of the sort of family activities of the weekend.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm lucky. You know, I've got 2 boys and they enjoy it and they're interested in it, so that's nice.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thank you very much for dropping into the bunker, and for anyone who's listening, thank you for stopping by.
Cheers, James. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.